Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Webster, and I'm Knowledge Broker with Niagara Connects, and I'm pleased to welcome you today to our webinar titled, Sorry, Can't Come In Today, The Hidden Reason Behind Absenteeism and What You Can Do. For those of you who are perhaps new to Niagara Connects and never joined us on a webinar before, as you can hear, the audio is provided to you through your phone line. Please do make sure you also click the link in your connection details so that you can join us in the online meeting room and see the slides for the presentation today. We do record all of our webinars and we post them online to the Niagara Knowledge Exchange within about a week. And because you've registered for the webinar, you'll actually receive an email within that time period that links you to not just the recording from today's event, but also a PDF of the slides and links to other resources that are going to be talked about today. So we do encourage you to share that with any other colleagues who maybe haven't been able to join us this afternoon. We do mute all of our participant lines, and this is just to help cut down on the inevitable background noise of fire alarms and PA systems, and also allows those that are joining in small groups to be able to have any sidebar conversations without pulling away from the presentation itself. So we will have our presenters speak for about 40 minutes, and we'll make sure that we save some time at the end for questions. If you do have any questions or comments throughout the presentation, please do use that chat pod down the left-hand side of your screen. Just type any questions or comments there, and we'll flag them and make sure that we address them during that discussion at the end. So I just wanted to get us started to kind of position us where we're coming at this topic from Niagara Connects. So from our perspective, our interest in this topic actually arose during the development of the Niagara Mental Health and Addictions Charter. So one focus area for implementation of the charter is student and workplace mental wellness. And in support of that focus area in 2016, Niagara Connects worked with the Canadian Mental Health Association Niagara branch, the Niagara Region Public Health, and the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce to complete preliminary research to describe psychological health and safety in the workplace in Niagara as it relates to employee productivity. And because of that, the 2017 Living in Niagara report identifies that according to the Mental Health Commission of Canada, 1 in 5 Canadians had a mental illness in 2011. This means that 1 in 5 people employed in Niagara have a mental illness, and that based on national estimates, approximately 6,200 Niagara residents call in sick every week due to mental illness. So this is by no means the singular cause of absenteeism in the workplace, but it's certainly one area that our Niagara community is focusing on at this time. Now, to provide support for employers and employees, there are currently 8 core agencies in Niagara that are funded by Employment Ontario, and our presenters today are from one of those agencies, Job Gym Employment Services of the John Howard Society of Niagara. Our presenters are going to be exploring the hidden reasons behind absenteeism, the differences between absenteeism versus presenteeism, information about attendance management, and then solutions to assist you in building a stronger workforce. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to take us away.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Melissa Wilson. I work in collaboration with the business development team here at Job Gym. We are very excited to be able to share some information with you and to talk to you about how we can help you with employee absenteeism. We know that having staff come into work and be present can be a challenge, and we're hoping that the information that we provide you today will make these attendance management issues easier and give you some insight into employee absenteeism and presenteeism. So first of all, understanding absenteeism. During our presentation, you will hear us speak about both absenteeism and presenteeism. We will define both to you and offer solutions that you can implement into your workplace. Absenteeism can most easily be understood as when employees are not at work when they have taken a day of absence from the workplace. An employee will have either called in sick, maybe had a family emergency, or a prior engagement they must have been met. Absenteeism has always been a delicate subject for employees and employers because of its implications behind the scenes. Employees may get the day off, but then often stress about the reaction of their boss or the credibility of their commitment to work. On the other hand, employers' concerns include falling behind on important work, finding someone to cover that shift, and losing money if the employee is getting paid sick leave. So we're going to start with a poll here. It's really important from a business perspective to have an understanding of how much absenteeism is costing your company in any given year. So do you know how much absenteeism costs your organization? We're going to have you select the answer that applies to you, and I'll give you a minute to answer that. Okay, so based on the results, absenteeism costs the majority of individuals on the webinar today between $5,000 and $3,000 per year. There are a variety of different methods to track the cost of absenteeism, and while it seems daunting, it is very necessary in your business. Some direct costs can include the individual's salary, insurance premiums, short-term disability, while some indirect costs would include replacement costs, management costs, productivity loss, and employee morale. So just to put some things into perspective, let's talk about some of the facts surrounding absenteeism. It is estimated that unscheduled absenteeism in the workplace can cost as much as $3,600 per year for an hourly worker and over $2,500 per year for an employee on salary. These costs include wages spent on employees who aren't working, the replacement cost for the workers, and the management costs your HR department incurs due to absent employees. In total, this is costing Canadian companies about $16 billion per year. The Conference Board of Canada also stated that only 46% of employers tracked absenteeism and only 15% measured the direct cost of it. Therefore, the costs to your company could be significantly higher. It was also found that casual absences account for 80% of lost days for most businesses, and in most cases, these absences are not supported by any sort of medical note or certificate. And now with the new laws surrounding medical notes, this number could increase. In 2003, Houtzagers created a formula for employers to be able to easily calculate the cost of absenteeism. Looks a little scary. Don't worry, we will send you the formula along with the instructions to use it effectively. But let's just take a minute to go over it together. So ACE equals the total cost of absenteeism per employee for a defined period. ML equals the total employee hours lost to absenteeism for a defined period, including illness, accident, PEL days, but excluding annual leaves. WH equals the average hourly pay for the various occupational groups. EBC equals the cost of employee benefits per hour per employee. S equals supervisor hours lost in dealing with absenteeism for the defined period. RH equals the average hourly pay for a supervisor. SBC equals costs of supervisor benefits per hour. And OC equals other costs such as training other staff, lost production, quality loss, etc. If you divide those by the amount of employees that you do have, you will get the cost of absenteeism in your workplace. While the formula does seem complex, I completed it easily, and I am by no means a math whiz. So we will have that link at the end of the webinar as well. So we're going to do another poll. We'd love to know more about the absences in your workplace. Roughly how many days a month are staff calling in sick? So this would be your total staff, 1 to 2 days, 4 to 6 days, 6 to 12 days, or over 12 days per month. So select the answer that applies to you, and we'll give everyone a minute to select that answer. Okay, so as you can see from the results, on average, your employees are calling in sick approximately 6 to 12 days per month. That's a lot of time, lots of money, product loss for your business to try and recoup. So the first step to addressing absenteeism is to identify the causes of absenteeism in your workplace. So is it a lack of engagement or motivation causing your employees to prefer to stay home rather than attend work? If so, we're going to consider solutions for revitalizing the workplace. Can you implement an incentive system toward performance? What about setting a social or sporting event to reconnect your employees with their colleagues at the workplace? If it's stress resulting from heavy workloads, think about how you can reduce the strain and encourage stressed employees to approach you before it overwhelms them. If it's care responsibilities, can you offer flexible working arrangements so parents can meet both sets of obligations? In the next section, Amber and myself will discuss some underlying causes of absenteeism. While the slide shows things that seem like common sense, as employers, we sometimes forget or refuse to believe that this could be happening in our workplace. In our research, we found that some of the reasons for absenteeism include but aren't limited to the following: the culture of entitlement, illness or injury, bullying, disengagement, low workplace morale, child or elder care issues, stress, burnout, substance use, misuse, and abuse, lack of flexibility, and mental health. So we're going to dive into these a little bit deeper. So the culture of entitlement is a you owe me attitude, one where people believe that society, a company, or government owes them something they do not have to earn or work for what they receive. These people believe they're owed something because of who they are or what social group or union they belong to, not because of what they earn. People who feel entitled take for granted what they have and keep asking for more. Unfortunately, the more they get, the more they expect, and they focus more on what they are owed than what they contribute. In a culture of entitlement, peer pressure to perform is replaced by peer pressure to conform to the lowest common denominator. Looking good is more important than doing the right thing. One of the most concerning attributes of this culture is that employees see their 10 days per year as a guaranteed entitlement rather than a just-in-case fallback. Paid sick leave is meant to keep genuinely unwell employees away from the workplace to avoid getting others sick and prevent further illness or injury, as it is likely that without paid leave entitlement, some employees would attend work while sick to avoid the financial blow of a day without pay. But there are individuals out there who do exploit this, employees who take their sick leave as soon as it accrues just because it's there, or who give notice of their resignation and then proceed to work it through paid sick leave because they know they'll lose it otherwise. The culture of entitlement is very hard to dislodge and may be systemic in many businesses. So how do you know if you have a culture of entitlement in your company? A few of the signs would be giving employees raises just because it's that time of year, giving promotions based on how long someone has worked for the company as opposed to how well they perform, or having contests or incentives to get employees to do what they're already getting paid to do. Do you reassign poor performers instead of asking them to leave or coaching them? We would all be better off as business owners and members of society if we foster a culture of merit as opposed to entitlement. Transitioning from a culture of entitlement to one of merit is not easy. It takes tough decisions, tough conversations, and it takes consistency. Later in the presentation, we'll talk about ways to rectify this. Illnesses and injuries are usually something that is unavoidable. Accidents, injuries, and illnesses do happen, but the problem arises when employees fail to let management know they won't make their shift. We'll talk later in the webinar about attendance management. It's important to remember that this can include mental health, and as an employer, you do have a duty to accommodate. Employees tend to avoid work when they are being harassed or bullied. The absence of an employee may be an underlying symptom of something much worse going on in the workplace. It has been estimated that 45% of Canadians report they are being bullied on the job. Half of those workers said nothing was done to address the issue. 1 in 4 choose to leave their job because of the bullying. Many workers do not come forward. Of those who do come forward, they feel that their complaints aren't heard. Workers should feel comfortable coming forward if they feel they are being bullied, and employers should take these complaints seriously. as they can lead to larger problems that affect not just the individual employee, but the entire organization. In fact, Ontario employers must take these complaints seriously. Workplace harassment is clearly defined in the Ontario's Occupational Health and Safety Act as engaging in a course of vexatious comment or conduct against a worker in a workplace that is known or ought reasonably to be known to be unwelcome. This might include insulting or intimidating conduct or comments, hostile actions, bullying or cyberbullying, and the posting of offensive pictures. It often involves repeated incidents or patterns of behavior intended to humiliate, degrade, threaten, intimidate, and/or offend the victim. Many think that bullying is directed specifically toward an individual. However, there are many other forms of bullying, such as withholding information from a person, excluding staff from meetings, threats, and intimidation. This can lead to high turnover and high rates of sickness. This can also have a negative impact on your business once these individuals leave. Most occupational health and safety acts have been extended to include harm to psychological well-being. Organizations should not tolerate any violent behavior, including aggression, harassment, or threats of violence. Violent or aggressive behavior hurts the mental health of everyone in the organization and creates psychologically unsafe work environments filled with fear and anxiety. So disengagement. So what does it mean to be a disengaged employee? So disengaged employees are not willing to put in extra effort for success. They don't like going to work most days, and they're unlikely to recommend the products of or employment with their employer. Laziness and indifference are merely symptoms of a bigger problem that can affect employee performance. And by the time any of those symptoms surface, remediation to improve employee engagement might be impossible. If the prospect of an unhappy workforce doesn't faze you, it should. After all, disengagement doesn't just affect the well-being of the individual worker. When employees are unhappy, when they feel powerless, when they don't feel like they are being listened to, and when they don't feel appreciated, it can impact businesses in a major way. Increased absenteeism and higher turnover rates are very real issues, but there are even bigger problems that disengaged employees can bring: dysfunctional work relationships, lower productivity, and a strict work-to-rule ethic, just to name a few. In fact, according to the Canadian Human Resources Centre, employee disengagement costs North American businesses about $350 billion annually in lost productivity. On the other hand, when employees are engaged in work, they show higher levels of performance, commitment, and loyalty. They're more willing to put in extra hours and more likely to come up with creative ideas to solve problems, not to mention they would put a golden touch on customer relationships. So do you find that your team seems bored with their job? Is their water cooler chat revolving more around other job opportunities than a recent workplace initiative? Are they more focused on their Instagram feeds than growing your business into new markets? You're not alone. Employee engagement is at an all-time low. Psychometrics Canada, a firm that offers human resources assessment tools and consulting services to companies, surveyed more than 350 HR professionals across a range of industries, and 69% said low levels of employee engagement was a serious problem in their company. And employees agree. According to an employee engagement index put together by the Canada Human Resource Centre, 60% of respondents said they were not happy at work, while another 15% reported being actively disengaged. So we're going to do another poll, and I'm about to ask you a hard question. I want you to think about this before jumping to an answer. Many of us are going to be inclined to select yes, simply because that's what we want to believe. So I want you to think about this question for a minute and select your answer. Are your employees happy? I'll give you a minute to respond. Okay, so it looks like many of the people in the chat think maybe their employees are not so happy, and some think they are. So Amber is going to take over from here, and she's going to continue to identify some causes of absenteeism, and then Ashley will finish off with how we overcome those. So hopefully the people who think I think so will be able to confirm that.
Thanks, Melissa. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amber Tremblay. I'm part of the business development team here at the Job Gym. So today I'm going to continue to identify and discuss the other causes of absenteeism in the workplace. So low workplace morale is a real issue. However, many employers don't know that there is an issue until it's too late. Some clear indicators that there is a low workplace morale could be that staff aren't performing at a level equal to their skills and potential. You may find you're getting good work from staff is like pulling teeth, or some staff have one foot out the door already, or they have already left. So ultimately, we are all responsible for our own thoughts and attitudes. Yet too often in the workplace, the conditions our managers create make us unhappy, unmotivated, and ultimately crush morale. So as a leader, it is important to recognize how you impact those around you. No matter where you are in the organizational chart, from first level manager to CEO, your efforts and attitude impact your team. However, your attitude alone is not enough to make someone on your team engaged and performing at their highest level. To truly improve employee morale, you have to take action on the things that cause frustration and ruin a workplace. Employee morale is perhaps one of the most important but most difficult things to manage. It is critical to maintain high morale in order to increase retention, but it's often difficult to get an accurate read on how employees feel and what is causing them to be dissatisfied. So oftentimes we've heard clients tell us that they left previous jobs for lower paying jobs just so that they would be happy at work. So child or elder care issues. So sometimes child or elder care issues are unavoidable in the workplace. Employees who struggle with child or elder care issues may find it difficult to make it into work on time or give advance notice when they need to take time off. Employees may be forced to miss work in order to stay home and take care of a child or elder when normal arrangements have fallen through. So for example, a sick caregiver or a snow day at school, or if a child or elder is sick. So some workplaces allow employees with dependents a certain degree of flexibility to work from home, thus alleviating their worry. This flexibility also ensures lower productivity losses as the employee will still be working and completing tasks. So stress. Stress refers to potentially negative physical or mental tensions experienced by a person. Stress can come from both good and bad experiences, so the effects of stress can be positive or negative. Stress is not all bad, so without stress there would be no productivity or engagement. Stress becomes a problem when individuals are not able to handle an event or situation and become overwhelmed. A major study of tens of thousands of individuals, general practitioner sick notes, found that 35% of those surveyed were given for mild to moderate mental health disorders, such as depression, anxiety, and stress. Employees under extreme stress due to work or personal reasons will get sick more often. They may have poor morale and are more likely to quit without notice. Although you cannot rid the entire workplace of stress, you can put systems in place to help. So employees suffering from high stress levels have lower engagement, are less productive, and have higher absenteeism levels than those not working under excessive pressure. A study done indicated that more than half of employees cited inadequate staffing as the biggest cause of stress in the workplace. Globally, few employers consider this to be a major problem, with only 15% of senior managers acknowledging this as a cause of stress in their organization. Absence levels were also influenced by stress, with highly stressed employees taking an average of 4.6 sick days per year compared to 2.6 days for employees reporting low levels of stress. So burnout. Job burnout is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by long-term exposure to demanding work situations. Burnout is the cumulative result of stress. Anyone can experience job burnout. However, professions with high job demands and few supports can increase the prevalence of burnout and reduce engagement. Helping professions such as jobs in healthcare, teaching, or counseling often have high rates of burnout. Burnout has three main characteristics. So exhaustion, so for example, the depletion or draining of mental resources. Cynicism, so the indifference or a distant attitude towards one's job, or the lack of professional efficacy. So the tendency to evaluate one's work performance negatively, resulting in feelings of insufficiency and poor job-related self-esteem. Over 1 in 6, so 17% of those who have called in sick, despite not being ill, did so because they were tired. 12% of respondents said that they needed time off due to work-related stress, but didn't want to admit it. This suggests employee burnout caused by a lopsided work-life balance is one of the leading causes of absenteeism. It also highlights a concerning lack of communication between employees and their employers when conditions in the workplace are contributing to poor health. Keeping track of employees who are consistently staying late or coming in early or taking extra shifts is important. Being able to mitigate the behavior before it leads to burnout of the employee will be key. So substance use, misuse, and abuse at work. Substance use, misuse, abuse, and coping strategies can have a significant impact on work. Generally, substance use becomes a problem when an individual has lost control over their use and or continues to use despite experiencing negative consequences. Warning signs that indicate an employee may be struggling with substance abuse are similar to those caused by increased stress, lack of sleep, and physical or mental illness. Don't assume that an employee has a substance abuse problem. However, ignoring warning signs will only make the problem worse if someone is indeed struggling. So lack of flexibility. Employees who value flexibility tend to rebel, and they are not able to manage their schedules in a way that works for them. These employees may react by purposefully coming in late or abusing breaks. Providing these employees the flexibility they thrive on, and you can reduce their instances of absence. The sick note rule change creates new problems for business owners, managers, and HR professionals. So first, it means that their hands are effectively tied when it comes to confirming employee absences relating to an illness. Legislation means that employers will, in effect, have absolutely no recourse when their employees call in to inform them of the need to take a personal emergency day. The most they can request is prognosis information, the expected duration of the employee's absence, and an expected return to work date. In addition, organizations will now have to pay for 2 of those days while accommodating up to an additional 8 unpaid leave days. It is expected that small and medium-sized employers are sure to struggle with this added financial burden. So presenteeism. So now that we are more familiar with absenteeism, let's talk a little bit about presenteeism. So presenteeism is the action of employees coming to work despite having a sickness that justifies an absence. Therefore, they are performing their work under suboptimal conditions. Employees may be disengaged while at work. So when employees come to work not mentally present due to illness, extreme family or life pressures or stress, they are not giving themselves adequate time to get better. So you may ask yourself, why does presenteeism occur? It may be that the individual cannot afford to take a day off. There may not be a backup plan for tasks the individual is responsible for, and they may have to do too much when they do return to work. They may be concerned about job insecurity related to downsizing or restructuring. On any given day, you may look around your office and see that all of your employees are at work, but present doesn't always mean productive. Presenteeism is absenteeism's lesser known, but still costly cousin, and occurs when employees who are physically present are distracted to the point of reduced productivity. But beyond this simple definition, presenteeism has several nuances. If once or twice an individual is distracted at work by a personal matter, that is not presenteeism, or at least it is not consistent presenteeism. If the problem that creates the distraction persists and results in chronic stress with unhealthy physical or emotional manifestations, such as a racing heart, headaches, or depression, it becomes a health issue that interferes with productivity. So given these issues, what can we do? It's important to manage absenteeism in the workplace. So here are some examples to do so. So it definitely helps to have a clearly defined attendance policy. So ensure that employees have a clear understanding of the expectation of attendance and understand what is expected from them when they have to be away from work. So who do they need to call into, and how soon? So what happens if they don't comply with this policy? You should identify roles and responsibilities. Absence management strategies work best when there are designated champions who own the process. When an employee is away, who's responsible for letting human resources or payroll know, and at what point do they need to be informed? If an employee is absent several days in a row, who's responsible for contacting them? If the absence progresses to a short-term disability claim, what's the process? You should also track absences and look for trends. So take a look at absence data from your organization in aggregate and subsets, for example, by location or by business unit or department. Examine whether there are specific days of the week, like Mondays or Fridays, or during particular times of the year where absences are a particular issue. You should also have a plan. So if and when the times come that you must take steps to address excessive absenteeism, have a plan and a process for doing so that is applied consistently at a predetermined threshold. Make sure that the employee is aware of resources available to them to assist them in improving their attendance, like counseling or work-life services through your organization's EAP or the availability of a flex time program. Make a plan of action and a time frame for improvement and follow up on the employee's progress. Similarly, have a plan in place for how your organization will deal with noncompliance to the absence policy with the associated disciplinary action. Include information about the consequences of noncompliance in your attendance policy so that everyone's expectations are managed. You should also integrate your absence management with disability management. So review your sick leave and absence policies against your short-term disability contract and your organization's disability management policy to ensure that there are no gaps or duplication. You should also use your data to build a strategy. So if trends have been identified in your absenteeism data, like spikes on specific days or in specific departments, for example, dig deeper for the drivers behind these absences and develop a strategy for improvement. Collaborate with your insurance carrier, EAP provider, and or advisor for solutions and support. Your organization should also consider having strategies in place to support employees that require accommodation or flexibility while they're in treatment for a chronic or acute health condition through which they are trying to continue to work as best as they can. Absences in situations like these may meet the thresholds for action set out in your absence policy, but are explainable, medically supportable, and may stop a progression to disability. Many Canadian workplaces have significant opportunity for improvement in the way absenteeism is managed. A strong communication effort to improve everyone's understanding of roles and expectations, a mechanism to track absences and gather valuable data, and consistently applied processes will collectively go a long way in reducing lost productivity. So creating an attendance management program policy. So given the significant impact of absenteeism on employers' operations, employers have a legitimate interest in reducing the impact of excessive absenteeism and the right to take active steps to manage it. Employers that do so can reap huge benefits, including a reduced incidence, duration, and related cost of absence, as well as reduced management time and increased productivity. Managing attendance and absenteeism raises a number of challenges for employers, and employers can take a multi-pronged approach to addressing the problem. One of the most effective tools is implementing a formalized attendance management program, so an AMP, to systematically address workplace absenteeism issues. An attendance management policy in the form of an AMP is generally acceptable in the workplace if it sets out the categories outlined in this slide. We've laid out the various areas that you can outline in your AMP, and we'll send you a link at the end of this webinar that outlines more details of each section and how to go about creating an attendance management policy. So now I'm going to pass this along to Ashley to discuss how you can address absenteeism and presenteeism in your workplace.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Flett. I'm also part of the business development team here at the Job Gym. I get to talk about the fun stuff, the things that you can introduce into your workplace to help with absenteeism and presenteeism. So in the next couple slides, we're going to discuss each issue and then how to address it and how to fix it. So the first topic that we covered was entitlement culture, and I'm sure that we all know somebody like this. It's important, as Melissa said, to create a culture of merit by rewarding top performance and frowning on mediocrity. So run your business more like a team and not like a family, which for some of us is definitely hard to do, but no one ever gets fired from a family. So no matter what you do, you're still part of the family, whereas on a team, members are motivated by peer pressure, and the superstars are cheered on, and the slackers are booed. You can't mandate a culture of merit. However, you can create one by expecting a lot from your employees, so holding them accountable in celebrating their small successes or their big successes. Let your employees know that job security, advancement, and pay increases are guaranteed, but only by high performance and company profits. Foster a culture of merit in your company, and you will see performance, quality, and morale quickly go to new levels, and the value of your company will quickly multiply as well. You can also implement clear policies that outline your expectations on each employee. So this could include guidelines for when they should and should not attend work. So hold team meetings to emphasize the importance of commitment and to demonstrate how absenteeism crumbles the morale of the other employees who obligingly turn up to work every single day. Illness and injury. Again, as Melissa stated earlier, this is usually unavoidable. But if you have a very clear policy in place regarding how to call in sick, how to report accidents and injuries, etc., it can help alleviate this a little bit. So if you have staff cross-trained also, you're able to have them cover for the individuals who are away. So remembering also that mental illness may fall under this category, and as an employer, you do have the duty to accommodate. Ensure that you maintain open communication with your staff so they feel comfortable talking to you about things like this. Bullying. So as mentioned, bullying and harassment continue to be issues in the workplace. Always having an open door policy with staff and taking complaints very seriously is important. So providing training to your staff as well about the laws surrounding bullying and harassment, and implement a zero tolerance policy in your workplace. If issues do happen to arise, you need to make sure that you address them immediately so that staff feels like their complaint has been heard, and they will feel more comfortable talking to you in the future if there are any concerns. As for disengagement, we've listed 5 easy ways to boost employees' engagement. So the first one is listen to your employees, and you're actually going to hear me say listen to your employees a lot over the next couple slides because it is very important. But you also need to not just listen to them, but hear them out on their opinions. When employees feel like their ideas matter, their trust and motivation levels soar, and reaching company goals becomes a lot more feasible. The second one we have listed is clearly communicate expectations. So when expectations have been set, it's easier to offer constructive criticism when improvement is needed. So communicating expectations also fosters a sense of support and cooperation, and in turn encourages team members to find solutions. Just remember to throw a thank you in there too. The third one, support learning and professional development. So while managers tend to believe employees leave their jobs for more money, as Amber mentioned earlier, that's not necessarily the case. So most people who quit their jobs do so for better skills, career advancement, and quite simply, more interesting challenges, or to be happy. So keep your team engaged and loyal by offering them developmental opportunities, learning opportunities right on their home turf. The fourth one is being transparent. So your relationship with your employees needs to be built on mutual respect, flexibility, and kindness. And this helps to build trust, which will in turn encourage your team to be happier, more loyal, and more trustworthy as well. And lastly, tweak the work environment. So we know that office design can have a big impact on worker happiness. And while a complete reno is not usually feasible, there are smaller tweaks that you can make. So incorporating color into the workplace, having an open workspace, this can foster collaboration and creativity, and in turn make happier employees. So there are lots of different ways that you can make sure your employees are happy and fulfilled, but the most important one is simply engaging with them on a personal level. So asking them how you can make the workplace more inspiring, how you can make it more challenging and motivating for them, and in short, connecting with your team. It really goes a long way in building trust, mutual respect, and in turn engagement. Low workplace morale. So if you find that you have low workplace morale, you can make sure that you offer praise. So too many workplaces operate on a no news is good news policy, and if you're like me, that will drive you absolutely crazy. So telling people they've done a good job is a far better tactic. If someone has no idea whether their efforts are appreciated, they're going to start to wonder why they should even bother. So a brief email saying, I just wanted to let you know you really did a great job on that project, or chat with them in person. This will boost the employees' morale and motivate them and continue to do their best. The second one, create friendly competition. So the Employee of the Month concept is somewhat stale at this point, but employees still like to have their accomplishments acknowledged in a public manner. So an option is to have weekly non-monetary prizes for top-performing team members. It could be something really simple, a flag that sits on their desk, some kind of statue that gets passed from person to person, but it'll instill a little competition among team members and offer a constant reminder that good work definitely gets noticed. Make sure that you care about your employees. So people want to know that their bosses actually care about them and don't see them as a number. So communicate with and listen to your employees and really put emphasis on the listening part. Encouraging friendships. So company loyalty is built on friendship. So when employees possess a deep sense of affiliation with the team, they are driven to take positive actions that benefit the business. So of course you shouldn't force your team members to be friends, but you can plan social events and activities which will help your employees really connect with their coworkers. Make sure that you challenge them. So when employees aren't challenged regularly, they tend to get bored and unmotivated. This is especially true with your star performers who tend to learn things really quickly. So setting goals, assigning new duties and responsibilities, these are things like small things that you can do. If an employee seems to want to learn new skills, encourage them to do so and follow up on their progress. There are several ways that managers can help employees continue to learn and grow. And it can be as simple as getting yearly or monthly goals or assigning new duties and responsibilities, like I said. But again, listening is key. So if an employee seems keen to learn a new skill, encourage them to do so and follow up. Celebrate their progress. So celebrating progress with your team, break goals down into smaller milestones and even smaller tasks for each milestone. And each time something is checked off the list, your team will know they're one step closer to a big achievement. So again, child or elder care could be unavoidable, but ensure that your staff is familiar again with the family caregiver leave outlined in the Employment Standards Act. If the individual does not qualify for this leave, you can offer some flex time, accommodation, and maintain open communication with them. But just remember, what you do for one person, you must do for all. So next we have stress. So healthy and happy employees are also going to lower your stress levels as well. So there's benefits to implementing some stress relieving strategies all around. So setting clear goals for your team members. So by setting these clear goals, your team members do not have to think long and hard about what their initial task was supposed to be. So encourage mindfulness on your team as well. The idea of mindfulness or meditation in the office is becoming more and more common. Having mindful breaks or introducing a wellness day. This is something that we did recently where all the staff got to participate in activities that were beneficial to their health or their mental health. Offer a flexible work environment. So nowadays everyone is looking for that flexibility at work. Allow your team members flexibility by not monitoring them so often, as long as their work is being completed by specific deadlines. You can encourage your employees to move their bodies, so the mind needs a break occasionally in order to reduce stress in the workplace. Encourage your team members to take time from their day to take a walking lunch or a walking meeting or even try a yoga class. So the mind and body will have greater focus and clarity of thought. Physical activities such as yoga and running is also a good way for staff to learn how to pace themselves while in the workplace. You can also set some quick 5-minute reminders for your team every 2 hours of constant staring at the computer just to get them off their chair and on their feet to stretch their body and rest their eyes by looking out the window. In our workplace, we did introduce yoga lunches for anyone that wanted to participate. It definitely increased workplace morale and it really reduced stress. So the last one we have listed here is workplace recognition. So another way to reduce stress in the workplace is by encouraging workplace recognition. Great companies know that the employees are the heart of the business. However, a great manager should recognize the effort of their team members and appreciate what they have done for the company. So you can either have a short chat with them and tell them what a great job they've been doing, or make a small announcement about it during a weekly meeting or in front of their colleagues. So as an employer, it's important that you recognize if an employee is showing any signs of burnout and interject before it gets any worse. If you have an employee who is consistently staying late, avoiding breaks, lunches, and comes in early every day, they are prime examples of someone who is eventually going to get burned out. Providing very clear expectations for all employees and obtaining confirmation that each employee understands those expectations is key. So make sure that your employees have the necessary resources to meet expectations, provide ongoing training to employees to maintain competency, make sure you enforce reasonable work hours, and help assess workloads for those who feel pressure to remain working beyond normal hours. Set reasonable and realistic expectations with them, encourage social support and respect with and among work teams, and strongly encourage the taking of breaks away from the work environment. So substance use, misuse, and abuse at work is definitely a touchy subject. As employers, it's important to remember that you do have the duty to accommodate, but you also need to make sure that you have very clear policies in place. You need to maintain open communication, create an open-door, non-judgmental workplace, and address issues as they arise. It is also important, again, to become familiar with the new laws surrounding medicinal marijuana and how they're going to affect you in your workplace. Lack of flexibility. So over 70% of professionals in Canada indicated that they wish their workforce was more flexible. Well, this is much easier said than done for most of us. It's important to recognize that staff do have extenuating circumstances in their lives that could require flexibility. So allowing employees to alter their workday to accommodate their personal life could be one form of flexibility. For example, if an individual needs to take their kids to school, they can start 10 minutes late in the morning and maybe work 10 minutes into their lunch or stay 10 minutes later each day. If you offer options for employees to work from home or in remote locations if needed, that can be helpful as well. Obviously, if you see a decrease in production, this is something that can change, but maintaining open communication with your staff and listening to their needs is, again, vital in asking them what would make their work life easier. So we've offered a few suggestions for you to implement into your workplaces. After hearing the presentation, we've listed a couple here. Which are you willing to implement into your workplace? Select all of them that apply. Also, if you have any others that you can suggest, feel free to type them in the comments. Okay. So Health and Wellness Day, I love that. Attendance management system, it's definitely going to go a long way. Flex time, lunchtime yoga, these are all fantastic ideas. Again, if you have any other comments or things that you want to introduce, please put them in the comments. And if you want any ideas on how to introduce these into your team, please reach out to us. So thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. It was a lot of information, a lot of talking. But as mentioned, we will send you the links. I think that they've already included some in the comments for you. But the absentee cost formula, the attendance management program, things like that we'll send you to make sure it's a little bit easier to implement them into your system. And also if anyone needs information on any leaves in the ESA or anything like that, we can send those your way as well. So we would like to open the floor for any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amber, Ashley, and Melissa for that. Please do, if any of our participants on today have any questions or comments, you can certainly use the chat pod down the left-hand side of the screen, or you can unmute your individual line if you'd like to verbally ask a question by pressing *7. We did have a comment from Catherine earlier on when you were talking about the entitlement culture, and she said entitlement culture fosters a culture of merit in a not-for-profit. Interesting just to think, I guess, about, and perhaps this is a question for our three presenters, if you see any differences in any of your content between for-profit and not-for-profit businesses and organizations, or are we generally seeing the same things across the board?
I think we're generally seeing the same things across the board. We are a not-for-profit agency, and we do introduce a lot of these things into our workforce to help alleviate, the stress, the burnout, things like that. So these are things that can definitely be used in all organizations.
Okay. I know for myself, one of the jobs I work for, we had practicum students over the summer, and we just kind of naturally fell into doing the lunchtime walks. We also had a lot of sunshine this summer, so that helped. But it really did help kind of boost people before hitting that afternoon slump that often comes after lunch. Those walks really kind of help get people away from the computer and re-energized. And actually, we were able to address a lot of workplace issues that had come up in a little bit more of a relaxed environment. So I love to see that up here. Scott has asked, will we be sending the slides via email? And certainly we will send slides, a link to the recording and any other resources to you within about a week. Do you have any other questions or comments from any of our participants?
Hi, I have a question regarding absenteeism. If it's not through the case of sickness, illness, or it's just a lateness issue that is becoming consistent. They're at work physically maybe an hour late, but there's a habit-forming pattern of it. Is that classed as, even though they're only an hour late or half an hour late, is that classed as absenteeism when you're working on your, your documentation calendar and keeping a record of it?
Good question.
Well, it would definitely be something that you track in your attendance management. So if you were to create the AMP, it would be outlined through that as well. It also, you have to look at culture and morale. When you look at all the other employees watching this individual coming in an hour late, and it seems fine because they don't know what's going on with the employer and the employee behind closed doors, but it does continue to happen. You start to disintegrate that culture in your workplace, so it definitely would be classified in the absenteeism as there's no productivity going on during that time as they're not in the workplace, but something that could be addressed in your AMP.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
You mentioned the new doctor's note thing. What exactly is the rules on that?
So that you can't specifically ask for a doctor's note from an employee, but you can ask for evidence. And then obviously this is the minimum standard set out by the ESA. So if you do work in a unionized work environment, those 2 days would apply, but anything after the 2 days, so if you work in an environment where you get 10 sick days a year or 15 sick days a year, so 2 of those sick days you can't ask for doctor's note. But once you're in your collective agreement and you have a greater right of benefit, your employer, your collective agreement could disclose that you have to provide some sort of medical documentation. So that would go above and beyond if there's a collective agreement. But as far as non-unionized workplaces, employers don't actually have the right to ask an employee to bring in a doctor's note to describe why they were not at work, but they can ask for medical documentation of some sort.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that. So 2 days, I call in sick. Being the employer, I can't say, hey, I need a doctor's note. But after that, you can say 10 days. After 10 days, I have to have a doctor's note.
So it has to be personal emergency leave. So they have to indicate to you that I'm taking a personal emergency leave day. And then after the 10 days, they're no longer covered under the ESA because that is what the ESA policy is.
Did that help answer the question? And perhaps if not, recognizing that we're kind of doing this in a strange environment over the phone like this, so it's everybody listening. Certainly I am going to put the contact information up here on the screen. So for anyone that kind of wants to explore any of these issues a bit further, I encourage you to reach out to our presenters or any of the other employment agencies in Niagara to work through any of these questions as well.
I also just wanted to say, too, that we can definitely send you some information regarding, the new sick note rule as well, too, if that was something you were interested in. We'd be happy to send that your way.
Perhaps if you could send it, we can include it in the follow-up package as well.
That
if you've got great. some suggested links, yeah, perfect. Any other questions or comments? Or any information that was surprising to people on the phone today? I felt myself kind of nodding along as I'm listening, but I had not really heard it packaged in this way, so it was helpful for me and certainly gives me some food for thought. But was anyone surprised by any of the information that you heard today? Okay, I'm going to assume that this silence means that everyone else is nodding along, and that you also have lots of food for thought, and that perhaps you're going to go on a little health break walk after this today to think some things over and perhaps have some further conversations internally within your own agencies and organizations. So with that, I wanted to say a big thank you to all three of our presenters today for the content that you've provided and your delivery, and certainly the resources that we'll be following up with people. To all of our participants, you will receive that information within about a week. I encourage you to forward it on to anyone else who might be interested. Our chairperson today, Sarah Johnson, does a great job with our technology, and she'll be putting up a link to our Niagara Connects distribution list. We do send out a weekly e-newsletter highlighting new resources, events, community blogs, and partners that we've listed on the Niagara Knowledge Exchange each week, so it's a good way to stay in the know about what's happening in Niagara. And through that list, we also send out our invitations to webinars such as this that we host. So if you want to stay connected to us and stay apprised of future opportunities, please do sign up there. Other than that, when we close the meeting room today, you will be redirected to a really short survey, and we appreciate you taking the time to fill it out. It just helps us make sure that the content we're helping deliver is meeting your needs, and that we continue to strengthen our work as we go forward. So thank you to our presenters and to all of our participants for taking time with us today. And with that, I will say goodbye, and we'll get on with our afternoon. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.